Welcome to a Tale of Two Cougars podcast. I'm Mitch Marshall. This is Mitch Davis. We're super BYU'd out today. I don't know if this is intentional. I got a lot of free BYU t-shirts when I went to school there, and super convenient. Like, I didn't know I was wearing this today when I did a little Periscope after the Taysom announcement. I was like, man, that worked out.
It did.
Real well.
I just happened to be wearing it as well. It just was kind of a BYU day.
All right. I just happened to be wearing your Van Noy jersey.
Yeah. KVN, hopefully going to see some good stuff out of him in the NFL soon.
Yeah, when is he going to get good enough that I can buy a Lions jersey without being ashamed? I would never buy a Lions jersey, but it's the thought that counts. I mean, Ziggy's already that good, right?
And we will talk some Kyle Van Noy and some Ziggy.
Apparently we will.
A little bit later.
Should have read some camp reports out of Detroit. Hopefully Sid's got that down just a little bit. We're going to have old friend Sydney Carlson join us. She interned with us for Greg Rebell at KSL, and now she works for the National Football League, living that fun Culver City life. That's like right next to LA. It's where the NFL Network is. So anyway, make sure, like, if you're having a good time, let all your other BYU fan friends know. We know there's a few BYU podcasts out there, and we're going to do some fun stuff this season. But you can always find us at A Tale of Two Cougars. That is the number 2 on Twitter and on Facebook, the A Tale of Two Cougars spelled out. Pretty easy to find, and video and audio we have on every possible platform. So enjoy us in the car, at the dinner table, whatever floats your boat.
If you cannot watch us, if you cannot listen to us, you are technologically impaired.
I tried to get my grandma to listen. She's in Germany in an old person home, and she watches. She doesn't care. She's like, what the hell is this? What is football? Anyway, yeah, YouTube Tell Two Cougars Periscope is the same as our Twitter and everything. But let's get to it. So talk about camp real quick. It's coming to a close, thank goodness, because we get real excited when football comes around. Preseason stuff comes around, but really we just want the real game. So as camp comes to a close, Taysom is officially named the starting quarterback. Before we had anything really than the announcement, that's kind of when I went on, and we learned it a little bit more after that. Not much, but what did you think about that? Midday, just regular media session, Ty Detmer goes ahead and makes that announcement.
I can't say that it's not expected by the majority of BYU fans out there.
I feel like that's kind of a recent thing. Like, maybe we've gotten that vibe during camp, because I think a lot of people thought, man, we want Tanner, we want our future now.
Agreed, but I think that came more kind of after Tanner had just finished the previous season. We still were uncertain about Taysom and his future with BYU, but I think as things became more solidified with that, I think people just realized, hey, if Taysom's going to be healthy, that is our best option. And obviously the coaches backed that up as well.
For all the solid stuff we know Tanner's done, I mean, we've seen Taysom show that much more, and he came back for a senior year, and he's 26, so I really thought it was his job. So Detmer said he wants to play to Hill's strengths, which, you know, we should be running the ball a lot. A lot of people want Jamal to have a big-time season on the ground, and he should be poised for it in a lot of ways. He didn't get banged up last year because he didn't play. He says he's in great shape. But it's a big workload, and there's a strong schedule. We're going to talk schedule, and when I looked over it, there's just not much for weak spots. This is a P5 schedule, and so it's going to be an interesting test, and I'm excited for it. And if Taysom can stay healthy, I think it'll be great. They did say they're going to do a few less draws and dives for Taysom himself, which I think is smart.
Which we heard last year.
Yeah.
But never really got the chance for that to kind of
to really see what it was going to be long term. And I did think a lot of times when Taysom ran, it was his choice finding open field, which that is when the best runs come from Cam Newton or Russell Wilson right now. Their best runs are coming on improvised situations, and it's more of a secondary threat than a primary dual threat. And that's how Taysom's going to have to play to stay healthy. He's going to have to lean on his receivers, lean on Jamal.
That, I think, is his biggest key to playing the full season this year, is not doing too much. And I know it's hard to say that because Taysom is a freak athlete and a game changer, but he's got to be really picky about when he decides to do that. And two, like you said, rely on Jamal, rely on his receivers.
And there's something in him, the competitor in him, that I don't know if he's going to be able to stop. That's like Bryce Harper running into walls, or it's like other quarterbacks doing the same thing. It's just there's only limits to how much you can do. And so, and he's had some bad luck too. Like last year, it was not necessarily a play where he put himself in danger that he ended up getting hurt. So hopefully that is not an issue for Taysom. But if it is, that's his MO. And I think BYU fans have a bad perspective on it. And one thing I was always really skeptical of with Bronco was the in-house branding, the in-house. How are they getting the guys to buy into what they're saying and the new philosophy behind an offense? So hopefully Ty Detmer has a really good rapport with the team and with everybody else as to like, this is how we're going to do things. Because I'm pretty skeptical that they can. And BYU fans all expect Taysom to leap over every other player, and that's just not realistic expectation and not the safest expectation. But we'll see how it ends up going. The other interesting camp thing, and you know way more about this, I keep seeing things that are like, BYU got this guy for a tight end, or they're converting this guy to a tight end. In other words, they really want a tight end.
They are searching.
But they don't know how to use, or they don't know who. And so I saw so many names come across. To me, it was like, well, it's going to be a wait and see game, but you know a little bit more about a few of these guys.
To me, it seems like they haven't found that guy that can do both blocking and receiving. They kind of maybe have a few guys that can do one or the other, but they're still searching for the guy that can do both. And so the guy that I think at one point they thought could be that, just because of his athletic nature and kind of coming out of high school as a highly recruited athlete, was Troy Hines. He's still suffering from hip surgery and injuries and has not been able to get healthy. So they're continuing to search their other options. Their latest one at one point was, I believe it was Solomon Wolfgram. He came from BYU Hawaii. He was a basketball player who they were hoping to convert to tight end. Looks like now they've moved him to defensive line. So he hasn't worked out as a tight end. And so now another name that has been moved over from linebacker to tight end is Alema Pilimai, freshman. Everyone says is a pretty athletic guy. So we'll see.
Tight end is such an interesting position because it used to be more about blocking. Then I think Shannon Sharp and Tony Gonzalez in the program really started to turn that. And then with the spread taking over college the last handful of years, now it's kind of been the bigger guys getting in there. Some have the leverage to block, some don't. I don't know. And we've definitely had teams where it's like, if this tight end's in, it's probably a run.
Yeah.
I don't think you want to telegraph that, but BYU may have to this year just to make sure the right guy's in at the right time to some degree. And they'll need to start recruiting tight ends, which they just haven't been doing, especially for this type of offense. Tight end can mean so many different things. I always liked tight end because I thought wide receivers are your outside guys, your speed guys, but now wide receivers have categories with your tall wide receivers on the outside, your faster ones on the outside, your slot guys can be small, but tight ends move out into that slot and are huge. So tight end means so many different things. Hopefully BYU finds someone who can take care of business on both sides. And blocking, a lot of that is effort and leverage, but if you haven't been doing it for years and years, it's very tough skill to pick up.
Which is where Alema Pilimai, it'll be interesting to see what kind of blocking he is or is not able to do.
Hopefully, I'd say treat it like defense in basketball. My issue with defensive basketball is half the battle is being willing to stay in front of your guy, put in the effort. Carmelo Anthony couldn't do it.
Hashtag Team USA.
Hashtag Team USA.
Doesn't like playing defense.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter in the
Olympics. I know. Everyone was like, oh, those games were close. They're not that much better. No, they are. They were just lazy in those games, and they let it get close. The women did the right thing and just destroyed everyone like the men should have. All right. Last camp note, talk about the offensive line a little bit. How do you feel about this offensive line? Because these are, Lapuahu, we know these names, but other than Lapuahu and Karoma, we don't Do you have a lot of confidence in these?
Yeah, there's a lot of guys who we don't necessarily know about their experience. You have a Travis Ide who comes from Southern Utah and is a transfer. He looks the part. The guy is huge, but we'll see. Taysom brought him up today in his interview as someone he's been happy with, so that's good to see. So far, the reports are it looks like Travis Ide, JJ Newigi.
I'm so glad you got all these names down. I looked at the pronunciation guide, it's still failing.
Parker Da, Lapuaho, and Karoma are all kind of looking at like the guys who are locking up starting spots. We know that BYU is not looking to kind of cross-train quite as much with offensive line this year. You're not going to see as many guys who are going to be guards and also tackles at a different point in the game. So we'll see how that goes. I think that's something that they just want the offensive linemen to kind of become a taskmaster.
They kind of want to be 10 deep. They want to have true backups. That almost nobody has that luxury in the college or pro game. So, but yeah, it's something they need to work on. They're going to be, I don't know, offensive line is so essential, and they're going to have to open holes. It's going to be interesting to see how much they zone block and how much they just go straight up when it comes to trying to block for Jamal. And then they've got to be able to keep those edge rushers off, because they're going to see a handful of really good ones coming after Taysom who can handle that. But that's what's going to get him in trouble, is if they're after him all the time.
I'm curious to see. Kyle Johnson has not been in practice, and neither has Wilcox. But Johnson was at the Cougar kickoff with the rest of the team signing autographs. So I'm interested to see come Monday when school starts, do some of these other guys make it out to camp? And that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to start right away, but if you can get them back on the team, that can only be a plus for your long-term future.
I think we've had less information this season, for all we say about how closed off Bronco was, like about players that are late to camp, about that are ones who are having discipline issues. And I'm sure there's some things that Kalani will do differently and just be like, I'm not going to talk about this. But in the end, I feel like there's a lot of names just floating around that we don't know what's going on with them. And just for me, offensive line is a huge area of concern, and surprised we don't have more of a solid front there. And Tijon Karoma is a concern, because seemed to have small issue after small issue and then medium issue. And he really should be a huge anchor. He's so perfectly suited for that, and he's already shown such glimpses of greatness.
Well, and that continuity with both Taysom and Tanner, the fact that he's been there for 2 years now, you want to have that experience with your quarterback and your center.
All right, let's talk schedule real quick. First, we can do a little recap. Start off with a back-to-back Pac-12 look with Arizona at Arizona, but it's going to be a neutral site, and it sounds like BYU is going to have a fantastic amount of fans. I know Arizona put a thing out today that pretty much said we need to buy some more tickets, and they tried to make it sound like a big deal, which looks cool for BYU, but they made it sound like a bigger deal than it was. They're like, it's
going to be interesting to see. I know it's like at this point, how much can you really tell which fan base is sold more than another? It's kind of hard. I know they're like looking at different sides of the stadium where the benches are, of kind of like, oh, maybe we've sold this many. But at the same time, I know a ton of BYU fans who are on the Arizona side.
You know what? Doesn't matter. We'll know when we get there. That's a game we're obviously going to talk about a lot. But
we're going to be there.
Through this schedule, Arizona, then Utah at Rice Eccles, UCLA probably we'll talk about the best home game, but I think that's it. And I think if BYU starts out 3-0, they'll be ranked and they'll have a massive amount of momentum. And the hard part will be over. They'll need then to get up for a couple of games we'll talk about in just a second. West Virginia next, just crush someone who's going to be in your potential future conference. Toledo might be a nice break. That's at home. You just want to go to a victory. That might be what you buy your tickets for. No offense to Toledo, who is also in the 20 teams being technically considered by the Big 12. Also, Michigan State, who, of course, has just had a really great run the last few years, had an insane play really kicked them out of the top 5 last year with muffed punts and last-second interceptions. They had a couple of crazy endings, but that is a really strong team. That would be if BYU is somehow 5-0 at that point, which I think they're capable of doing, and I say that very skeptically with a new staff and everything, but Arizona's not that strong. Utah, you never know what will happen, and please don't lose Utah. Just don't do it. UCLA is strong, but I think Josh Rosen is overhyped, and I think BYU got to see him last year, and so we'll see how they play him this year. West Virginia, Toledo, very winnable. So Michigan State, pivotal. Mississippi State is an SEC team that has had a couple of strong years, and but they don't have I don't think that they are a huge concern, but I hope that they play well enough that they look like a quality victory. Boise State, always good. That one is in Boise this year.
Smurf turf.
Cincinnati, one of our primary rivals, again, for that spot in the Big 12. SUU, that's one where if we lose, you wear a different color. You just pretend that you're a UVU fan. UMass, and then Utah State. Great way to end the season. That one is
a rivalry game, again, ending the season. Not quite the right one we would like ending the season, but
I don't know if you want Utah at the last game of the season. But, I mean, that's how it was last year, and that was an ugly game. But Utah State, they're coming into a slightly new era, too, so it'll be fun. We'll know a lot more about them when we get to that point. So the game I'm looking forward to the most, I mean, right now my anticipation is just so high for Arizona. I'm glad that the rivalry is getting renewed.
Yeah, can we, before we jump into some of these questions about what we think, can we just put an asterisk of not including Utah? Because I think we can all agree, that is the game we want BYU to win the most. That is the road game that we're looking forward to the most.
Looking forward to it. I'm also just nervous, and I hate I hate living in Utah when that game exists because everyone gets so petty, and this is BYU fans and Utah fans. It's
gets crazy,
and it gets personal, and it gets religious, and it gets stupid, and everyone acts stupid. Yeah.
But that's why as we talk tonight about, which games are we looking forward to.
That is its own breed of game.
Yeah, I think that one needs to be almost set aside, pick from the rest.
So home game I'm looking forward to the most is UCLA. I think we barely lost to them last year. That was a big heartbreaker for me. Rough weekend, and we have them at home this time. I have this Sports Illustrated sitting 10 feet away that's got Rosen on the cover, and I'm just sick of hearing about him because I think Tanner Mangum's better than him. And that is one thing is I don't have all this NFL confidence in Tanner Mangum, but I think he is the opportunity, and I think he could be better than Josh over there. A road game I'm looking forward to the most is Michigan State because I want BYU to win those big critical games. The fact that those are scheduled are important, and we don't know if every season is going to be – we know next season has a handful, but we don't know if every season is going to be as strong as this schedule. And to me, it is important that BYU takes advantage and wins those games. I don't know if they're capable of that, but you can't say you're a P5 team if you don't start to win those games and really show up big. What about you? Favorite home and road?
I hate to go chalk with you on this, but the home game has to be UCLA. They're the team that you're going to play at home that is probably going to be ranked the highest.
Is UCLA in preseason rankings? I know.
I try not to pay attention to preseason rankings
I
anymore.
do too, and I know Alabama's number 1 in both, but they're pretty ESPN's, which does matter a lot, and then the early other projections are fairly different. They have a pretty good mix in there, so that's kind of nice to see. I don't know if there's a huge – we know who the top 5 are, so we'll see if UCLA is in that, but I think at one point they will be ranked. I think they are high on their season, and for me, you want them to have a good season. You just want BYU to beat them, and then they have a good season, so you look better.
I think as well, it's a Pac-12 team, and that's something that BYU's kind of always measured themselves against, and so you want to have success, and it's one that really did get away last year, and so you got to get it back on your home field. Road game, Michigan State.
Mitch,
it's a big
making
name.
us look. We just look like we're same name, same teams.
Here's the reason that I want to see a victory from BYU in that game. Taking away Nebraska last year, which in some ways isn't quite like your traditional Big Ten team because they haven't always been in the Big Ten. BYU struggles against Big Ten teams.
Big Ten teams. Sorry to describe Big Ten teams. I think SEC teams are hard-nosed and they're very skilled, but they really just come at you and are very strong. Big Ten teams are a slightly more finesse version, which makes them really dynamic and tough to handle. Mm-hmm. Whereas you have the Pac-12, which is a little bit more open, a little bit more West Coast.
And so that'll be cool. The fact that BYU has struggled against Big Ten teams and just kind of that rough and tumble football style, I want to see BYU come out and play with a team like that and beat them.
Well, BYU always says that, we're tough and we can play with anyone. Well, you can get chippy with anyone, but can you physically stand up to these guys who are the biggest guys going to the biggest schools, getting recruited for that reason, being coached by very skilled people? BYU needs to consistently play that competition to continue to be able to stand up to that. And so I think that'll be a really tough game for BYU to win. So which team do you fear the most on the schedule? Probably Michigan State. The other thing I fear is an early season loss could really change the dynamic. And that's another thing is we have no idea how this team is going to handle a loss. A few years ago, 2 years ago, when we were interns, I was at the stupid Utah State game when Taysom went down. And from there, the psyche of the team was messed up. And so
it was a mess.
You hear all this crap about we're going to take it 1 week at a time and we're confident in what we have. No, they got messed. So I hate losing the opening game. I also think BYU lost the opening game to Virginia that year, and that was crushing. Yeah. A game they should not have lost. They were not ready. And so if they lose to Arizona, that is actually my biggest fear because I'm not going to lie. I'm one of those people that if there's one loss on the table, to me, okay, we're playing in the San Diego Bowl again. Let's hope they beat Utah. And I hate fans that don't care if anything happens except we beat Utah, that you're stupid. You have to see a bigger picture. And that's how Utah tries to discount BYU is by saying, we're in the Pac-12 and we win all these things. Like victories over you don't matter that much. I want rivalry games to matter, but not more than the rest of the season. So to me, those first two games, if BYU wins both of those, that will be such a positive. Big 5 wins. You don't have the downer of the first game. You don't have the downer of the rivalry game on your mind. You can take that into UCLA, and that gives you a lot better chance to beat Michigan State, who is not poised for this huge year. But again, gives BYU trouble, is always a good team. So
it gets me so excited to think of what LaVell Edwards Stadium could be like on September 17th. Kalani Sitake, Ty Detmer, their first home game. BYU is to be 2-0 at that point with wins against Arizona and beating your rival. That place would be ready to explode.
Against a big-time team. That would be ideal.
You do bring up some interesting points and kind of the thought of which team do you fear? It's almost like a two-sided question of, well, which team do I look at and I'm like, oh, I don't know if we can beat them. But it's also another side of it's like, oh, crap, if we lose to them.
Yeah. Well, I think in that case,
and that's Arizona fits that perfect because it's like, kind of in this mind, I've been asking myself of like, does BYU have a better chance of going 0-3 or 3-0?
I wouldn't be shocked if BYU has a pretty good team that goes 0-3. That would really suck. Don't do that. And I mean, even 1-2, you take one somewhere, you can have some optimism, but it's all too possible.
That first game is very important.
Well, that first game, it's important. It's going to be important for Arizona, but it could be a trap game because they're looking ahead to Utah or UCLA. Other trap games, Cincinnati is not going to be a bad team, and Utah State is going to want to play spoiler no matter what's going on. They're going to want to beat their big brother in the last game.
I want to see BYU start strong for once. I feel like the Bronco era has struggled to start the season strong. They did okay last year. Last year was actually surprisingly one of the better seasons, but even when you look at it, it was a 2-2 month of September. So it's going to be interesting to see what this coaching staff and this team can do.
I hope UVA loses their first game. That's all I'm going to say. All right, let's go ahead and get Sydney dialed up real quick. Biggest losing streak, I think possibly BYU could start the season 0-4. I don't see anywhere else in there where they really would have the possibility to lose more than 3 games. You have Michigan State, Mississippi State, Boise State. I think that they could grab one of those back to, and then they have Cincinnati, so maybe that's but I doubt they lose 4 there. I think Utah, UCLA, West Virginia, and Arizona at the top. Worse upside, and then their best chance for a win streak is going 5-0 to end the season. Boise, Cincy, SUU, UMass, and Utah State.
It's going to be an interesting season, like you said. If they can kind of climb some of that momentum early, that back end of the schedule, kind of like in years past, it's getting a little better, but at the same time, the month of November is still a lot of very winnable games.
All right. So we're about to bring on Sydney Carlson, introduce her a little bit. Not much else to say. She's not that special. No, she's great. She's doing cool work at the NFL. She produces a podcast called Around the NFL. She also does other digital work and works on lots of content for them. And Sydney was not necessarily an NFL person after she left school. She's a very big college football fan. Don't know how much she's been prepping, but we'll hear about some Cougars in the NFL.
She loves herself some Taysom.
She does. She loves Taysom she loves Taysom the way I love Jessica Alba. Sid, are we going to be able to hear her? Oh, the sound is down. 1 sec. We're having a technical human difficulty.
Can you hear us now? Can we hear you is the question.
Start talking. I think she's talking. This isn't good, Mitch. I'm just going to make up what she's saying. And she's saying that Taysom Hill is more attractive than Oh, Mitch is getting fancy. Let's talk about the decorations in a room. I want to go with interior thoughts here. I actually like the curtains. I don't know if those were there or if she picked them out, but no. Oh, well, that's pretty good for just stock apartment decoration. Some nice squares, good pattern. The bedding, on the other hand, she totally picked that out. I actually think I saw that at Kohl's. So yellow with lighter blue, and that's huge right now. It is that's actually like the same color scheme that my sister's using, but there's some flowers involved. You guys thought, look, I grew up watching Trading Spaces, so I know my interior decoration. And now whenever I think of that show, I just think of that Paige chick who's now doing RC Willey commercials. And I used to hate RC Willey, but then I bought my bed there, and it's really comfy. I don't know how long I can talk about beds and stuff.
Maybe. Can we hear? No. Still no.
Why are there cross signs through all that stuff?
I don't know.
Yeah, try clicking that. Oh, now they're red. Oh, no. Those definitely need to be unchecked. I wonder if they can hear Sydney, but we can't hear Sydney.
Maybe.
That would be silly.
Well, this is awkward.
I wonder if people are going to be able to hear her. Maybe we should bring up the YouTube stream and find out real quick. I don't even know how to
Just so everyone knows, this is the first time that we've given this a shot.
We can't even edit this out. This is she's trying to mouth things like we can read her lips. I don't even know how to find our stream. on YouTube. Oh, there it is. Sid, talk real quick again. Oh, there it is. Oh, this is on such a delay. Sid, talk real quick again. No, we can't hear her. Well.
Should we dial her up?
This is a big failure. This reminds me of me trying to learn cursive, which was also a big failure. So we're going to call you on the phone, and people are going to be able to see your little picture, and they're going to know it's you. And it's probably going to sound bad, but I'm pretty excited about it. Mitch doesn't know how to use the phone. She's got her flashlight on. What is this?
You have reached the voicemail box of
She didn't answer her phone?
016.
What is this? This is like every time I call a girl.
Sometimes when you test things, they don't work after when you really want them to.
He did test this. He did. He was like, oh, this is going to work.
What's up, Sydney?
Oh, hey guys. So this is neat.
You know, we did test this. It was supposed to work.
Oh, shoot. Well, so much for planning, you know?
This is working good now, though.
Nonsense?
No, not technically, but you look great in that little box right there. People are going to be like, look, there she is on the phone.
I just feel like maybe I should have made my bed before I got on this call. I didn't think that it would extend to the whole room.
You also didn't know that Mitchell would critique your room.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I mean, the curtains were not mine. They were just here when I moved into the house.
I like those are the best part of the room.
I don't hate them, so I still have them.
Are you living in the same place you lived last year?
Yeah, I live in LA with 5 other people. It's great. It's great fun.
I love LA. That's not true. LA's cray-cray.
Yeah, it's pretty cray.
Do you work with Reggie? Do you see Reg? This is
no,
this is probably.
I see him at lunch sometimes. But he
this is not.
He works on the network side, so I don't see him very often.
That's cool though. Anyway, other BYU friends working at the National Football League. So Sid, the Bronco lover of Bronco lovers, what do you think so far of? I mean, they haven't coached a game, so this doesn't really matter. But are you pretty stoked about the new coaching staff?
Oh, I got lost. Bronco Mendenhall, not the Broncos. Sorry, I'm switching back to BYU mode.
I like the real Broncos
I'm
too.
really excited because I've been a BYU fan my whole life, and my heart has been broken enough times that I know not to put up expectations. So
that's fair.
That's how I go into relationships.
Like from everything I hear, like one of my best friends is a sideline reporter, and she loves the coaching staff. All the players, talk about how Kalani is the ultimate players coach. And so I don't know. There's a lot of potential, but I'm going into it with my eyes open. Yeah,
players coaches too. It can be like that mom who wants to be your best friend. Sometimes there's not that authority factor. But Kalani's pretty.
Right.
He's pretty authoritative. My mom never wanted to be my best friend. All right, so what players are you looking forward most to watch this season?
Besides the one that we know, of
Tasty
course,
Taysom.
You are excited
Oh,
about.
You mean my boy Taysom? Yeah. No, I am really excited about some of the new defensive guys, like Troy Warner and Dane Lake. I'm stoked to see what they can do. And I just read some stuff that Lake was talking about. Like, he decommitted to BYU, and there was some question as to whether he was going to show up and whether he was going to come here or not. But when Kalani started doing man press, he called his mom and was like, this is awesome. This is everything that I want. This is why I was kind of hesitant about BYU. So he's all in. And I'm excited about, these really, really talented guys, these 4-star recruits that we're getting that are buying into this new scheme. And I just can't wait to see what comes of it.
Scheme can mean everything. So who do you think Troy Warner ends up getting that second cornerback spot, or do you have an idea who's going to start there?
I'm just so intrigued by him because whether or not he gets that starting spot, I think they're going to utilize him, and they've talked about putting him on either side of the ball. And I mean, he keeps saying, I'm focused on defense, but I would love to see his wide skill set and what he can kind of bring to this team, even if he doesn't get that second cornerback spot. But I mean, I think he's talented enough to do it.
BYU does so much offense and defensive flipping, and I always can't decide where they need more help. Not that they're bad on either side. I just don't know where I'm most confident yet. So I totally see where you're coming from there. What about the schedule? What excites you or scares you? Obviously, probably the strongest one they've had in years. What jumps out to you from the schedule?
I mean, it's terrifying at first glance, and because I'm so hesitant about this coaching staff, I mean, excitedly hesitant. The first 4 games are brutal, and I would love to come out of that, that first stretch with 2-3 wins, but it's brutal. And I'm excited to play Utah in a regular game, and I really want to beat them, of course.
Did you go to the UCLA game last year?
I did, and it was miserable.
And you went to the Utah game as well, right?
Yes, I did.
Maybe and it was miserable.
Maybe I should not go to games.
You are bad luck.
Those were the only 2 games I was in physical attendance for, so sorry, everyone.
Are you planning on hitting any up this year?
I'm going to the Arizona game.
Oh, me and Mitch are too.
So are we.
Oh, man, we'll have to meet up too on the road.
It's bad that I'm worried they're going to lose that and break my heart, and I'm going to Vegas the night before, so I'm like, that'll at least make up for it.
Right.
Anything else from that schedule, Sid?
I would love to finish out that season 8-4. I feel like that's maybe a little ambitious, but it's possible. And I wouldn't be shocked if it was a 6-6 season, and I wouldn't even be that disappointed with the turnover. But I mean, I want more than anything. Of course, you guys know that I love and adore Taysom Hill, and I want more than anything for his last year to be awesome.
I mean, hopefully he stays healthy.
Schedule, and we have such a huge turnover, and you're looking at a first-time head coach, a first-time offensive coordinator, a first-time defensive coordinator, and so I'm just bracing myself for the worst, I guess.
I like it. I think you're scared to get hurt, but I'm a pretty skeptical person who thinks that BYU could get 7 wins this year. I think maybe I just have high expectations. Like if they don't get 7 wins, to me, that means they screwed something up. Although, like you said, an 8-4 season might actually end up looking really good. But also, and depends how these teams end up. Because if UCLA, Michigan State, and Mississippi State don't end up really playing well in their conferences, then those would not be great losses if we're saying we're a competitive P5 team.
Right.
So, Sid, explain to us what you do with the NFL a little bit. I kind of talked about you do the Around the NFL podcast, but what's your role over there?
Yeah, so I produce the Around the NFL podcast. It's just kind of getting into the season. Right now it's a little bit like nonsense. We have a good time, but it's all, what do you talk about when there's no football happening?
Preseason doesn't actually matter.
I do a lot of video editing.
Just make it sound fancy. We're trying to give you some clout here.
What was that?
So just make it sound like you do something that's very important,
Something I mean, our podcast is the #1 listened to podcast from NFL.com. It's 4 guys. They're all really good buddies, and they just kind of shoot the breeze, and I get to watch, and they talk about football as well, and they're really good at what they do, and they're very smart and knowledgeable. I just kind of sit there and awe at what they know. They have all of this history at their disposal, just locked away in their brains. And I kind of just get to sort of facilitate that magic. It's great.
I like the term "shoot the breeze" because I didn't know it was a term, and it just sounds like the less appropriate or the more appropriate version of another shooting the, just chatting about whatever. I like that. But I listen to their podcast.
Podcast, Mitchell.
I know. I said "damn" last week, and I got in trouble.
Oh, what are we
from his grandma in Germany.
My grandma. I listened to it a couple times last season because you would tweet it out. And also the Broncos won the Super Bowl, so I was listening to like anything NFL just because I loved hearing people say that they were wrong about the Panthers winning. And I don't know who you guys predicted, but
soak it in.
Yeah, they were definitely fun to listen to, had rapport, and they weren't the same voices you always hear, which is nice. They're very different.
Yeah, they're great. And they're very, they're all fans themselves. I mean, they each have a specific team, but you kind of get that side of it too. Like, you experience their highs and their lows, and you feel for them even. And so you can they're very relatable, and they're super, entertaining. I really enjoy being a part of that.
So obviously NFL talk probably dominates your office, but what about college football talk?
It comes and goes. I mean, we have a few podcasts that maybe touch on it. The guys on my podcast aren't in love with it, but today, funny story. So the news comes out about Taysom Hill, and we have an email, a mass email that's sent out for anything that's news. So injuries, whatever. And this email comes through, and the subject line is just Taysom Hill is 26. And I was like, okay, clicking on this. What's happening here? And in the body of the email, all it is just named starting quarterback at BYU, period. That is all, period. And it was mostly just this guy's amazed that this 26-year-old was just named the starting quarterback because it's so very foreign to them. But I just thought it was hilarious because, honestly, through that news blast email, we don't get a whole lot of college football stuff unless it's Leonard Fournette or somebody huge. And so it's kind of funny that every once in a while BYU creeps in there.
That's gotta feel good. Just be like a little sunshine in your day. So what about Cougars in the NFL? Is there anybody you think that might make a roster that we're not sure about? Or obviously devastating injury for Kafusi, but any other interesting news out of Cougs in the NFL?
I am desperately rooting for Jordan Leslie right now.
Oh, yes.
Awesome
he
guy.
He had some great catches, especially in week 1. He was only targeted twice, but he made this catch, and the announcer even was like, who is this guy? Who is this kid? And they were talking about him, and he's done a really good job of, finding separation. He seems to know the offense really well. He's listed as 5th string right now, so I'm just, pulling for him. 5th
string is in, the 5th receiver, or is in 5th string? He's...
Well, he's the 5th receiver on either, they've got 10 receivers. He's the 5th on one side. But
well, hopefully he pulls his weight on special teams.
Love him. It's not looking great, but I'm just pulling for him.
Good Twitter follow at JLess9, by the way.
He's great. Also, Polisike, I think he has a good shot. They did just bring in Daryl Young in at fullback. And it seemed like it was the job was Paul's for the taking, but they brought in this veteran, and so there's a little bit more of a struggle there, a little bit more of a fight. But if they end up keeping 2 guys, which is a little unlikely, it could be him. But more than anything, I think he'll keep his job on the practice squad, if nothing else.
Dying position. We know Pitta has a broken finger. Danny Sorensen looks like he's going to make the Chiefs. Any word on Mitch Matthews?
Mitch Matthews is a goner, I'm afraid.
Too bad.
I've heard absolutely nothing about him from coaches. Nobody seems to be saying a single word about him. He hasn't played in either preseason games, not even in garbage time, which is the second quarter on. But it's not looking good for Mitch.
I bet you guys knew this, but I didn't know this until yesterday. Mitch seems to be dating the granddaughter of the color commentator for BYU. Now I'm blinking on the Mark Lyons, Maddie Lyons.
Maddie?
Yeah.
I did not know that. Look at this. TMZ, BYU Zone.
Ooh,
TMZ.
that could be our niche. It's talking about all the dating gossip, but then we get into like, oh, this guy's violating the honor code.
Squally, isn't Squally Canada also dating a soccer player? I believe.
I think he's dating Nadia Gomes, the WCC Player of the Year. There's some talented people love other talented people and look down upon the rest of us.
It seems like football and soccer at BYU is
because our soccer team's good.
The common hookup.
Although they lost their opening game to Nebraska, and that really kind of put a damper for me. I'm glad I didn't go to that game.
Well, from what I've heard, the soccer girls are in high demand all across campus.
Yeah,
Is this true, Mitchell?
So last year, first of all, I never tried to hit on any soccer girls, not because they were out of my league. Some of them were, because I don't date girls taller than me, and I'm only 5'9.5", 3/4 on a good day. But like 3 of the freshmen from last year got married over the summer. So they drop like flies. There was I shouldn't bring this up. I'm not gonna say any names because we're not TMZ. But there was a recent BYU football, BYU soccer divorce that I found out about. So not all is happy in the happy valley of sports.
Yikes.
True.
But
never like to hear that.
No, you never want unhappiness for most people. And I mean, if they're at Utah, who cares? You hope that there was all sorts of heartbreak and pain involved.
I'm not going to disagree, but
Question about the boys in Virginia. How close are you, or are you not paying attention to Bronco and his crew that he took off to Virginia?
I am going to be rooting for Virginia so hardcore because I love Bronco Mendenhall. I know there's a lot of haters out there, but I want them to do super well. I mean, unless they play us, then of course I'm going to bring my allegiance right on back. But I honestly wish them all the best, and I will be following their games and hoping that they just kill it out there.
What's the name of their offensive coordinator again?
What do you got to do, my God, Mitchell?
All right.
I wish all the best to Bronco and his sometimes unfortunate staff of coaches.
All right, Sid. Well, thanks for coming on. We'll see you in Arizona, hopefully, and talk to you throughout the season. Excited for what you have going on. We know you are bleeding blue, Royal or Navy. I don't actually
all
know.
Over LA.
Royal.
Any other final thoughts on BYU? Anything you have on your mind this season before we let you go?
I'm stoked that Taysom's back, if that's not been made apparently clear on this podcast. And yeah, I can't wait. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Percentage chance of Taysom making it through the whole season
without missing a game.
I mean, what my heart wants, or what I think will actually happen?
Be real, dog.
I think I'm going to give it 60%.
Okay, you're being very honest with yourself today. I was worried you were bleeding Dodger blue now instead of Cougar blue. So, all right, Sid, thanks for coming on. Have a good night. Good luck. Don't die.
Thanks, guys.
Make good choices. Remember who you are.
Go Cougars.
What else? What else do moms tell you before you leave? Don't be skanky. All right. That's what my mom always told me before I left the house.
Don't be skanky.
Don't be skanky. No, whatever. I'm such a sweet boy. But
don't date skanky, maybe?
No. You know what? We didn't talk Broncos, and I'm very proud of that because Sid was not big on NFL, like I said. And now, I mean, obviously she's into it, and I'm proud we didn't talk more Broncos. This is like this and the BYU flag that's normally behind us, the only non-Broncos sports, not sports stuff, but decor I own. And but I love soccer a lot. Yeah, there's a right there, and I'm too lazy to turn the computer around and look how beautifully framed we are. But soccer scarves, RSL, that was free. USA wore that to the World Cup, and then the last couple of years of BYU, very themed. And as if you can't tell, I'm a big fan of their soccer team. That was more enjoyable for me than football. It was easier to be a fan of, whereas a little more painful with basketball and football. Yeah. But just as invested. Lots of fun.
It starts to become more painful, though, the more you start to pay attention. Because last night sucked.
What?
Soccer.
Oh, yeah.
Women's soccer losing to Nebraska.
It was a really good goal by them, and they had great form as far as defense, but you could tell BYU wasn't just – they weren't quite connecting yet, especially in that last third. A couple of bad shots when the pass was there with great opportunity. Both Ashley and Nadia, two of our best players, if not the best players in the WCC, took bad shots and just not able to put it together yet. A lot of freshmen getting heavy minutes. So Jen Rockwood's never been afraid. Last year she plugged Busy and a couple other people right in. So hopefully they're good, but they don't have a strong schedule this year. So to get a high seed, they have to win a lot. And they started off on the wrong foot. So those were soccer thoughts. Let's talk to Big 12 real quick.
Oh, Big 12. I thought you'd be over with by now. We'd be in.
Well, when they made that announcement, they seemed so – first of all, 4 teams was much more likely, and they kind of wanted to just do it. And now they're willing to listen to 20 teams. From what we hear, maybe 5 teams have a real shot. And it sounds like 3 teams, Houston, Cincy, and BYU, have really separated themselves.
Sounds like once the networks got involved as well, things got more complicated.
Stupid. The network's like, oh, we're going to sue you. No, it was always in their contract to expand. You just know it. Also, if they chose to expand, you had to pay more per school, and now they're trying to go back. I don't think that's going to end up being a huge legal issue. I do think they didn't want to hurt that partnership by adding 4 teams, so it made 2 teams much more likely.
I think it's 2 teams at this point.
What's wrong with doing an odd number? I don't know why you can't do 3. It's only a little weird.
Or just kick out Baylor and put BYU in.
Yeah.
Call it good.
Well, for all the controversy about the LGBT stuff, it's like Baylor's full of rapists, BYU's full of gay haters. If that's your perspective, they're both pretty bad. You might as well let them both in or kick Baylor out. I don't know. But I actually like Baylor. Obviously, their administration has made big mistakes, but there are a lot of good things in that program as well. And while I say outlandish things such as rapists, I don't mean that, but they have had a sexual assault problem. And that's the PC way to say it. So BYU apparently has like 7 votes.
Greg Swain, a radio host in Big 12 country, came out, I believe it was yesterday. Said that.
I've heard from a lot of ESPN people that they have – we talked about last time that they really have a lot of strong support, but – there is kind of a power push for each of the other 2 schools, and BYU they just know is the best, but may end up getting pushed out by the other 2. I think the best BYU just has to win and be quiet, and hopefully Tom put together a great presentation, which I'm sure he did.
Interesting Twitter rumor, which obviously I'm not going to put a whole lot of stock in.
Twitter rumor.
But someone said that they were told Houston has reached out to the Mountain West Conference.
About what?
I don't know.
Here's the thing: if the Mountain West,
they just seem like they're desperate to just jump into a different conference. I don't know why. But
if they're even talking about, I don't know. I mean, if you put together, say, the best 10 non-P5 teams right now and try and make a 6th power conference, I don't know, maybe, but that would be logistically insane. And there's just no money in the television market right now.
And if geography was going to be a mess with BYU in the Big 12, that conference would be even more of a mess.
So looking forward, we'll always have predictions. Next week we'll predict the first. We'll have whatever big sporting events are going on, but definitely we'll pick a few big college football games. We'll, of course, pick the BYU game. So look forward to that. Next time also, if you want to tweet at us, we're going to save this for next time. We're going to do best fantasy football team names, PG version, maybe PG-13. But
let us know what you're naming your team this year.
Yeah, let us know. We'll tell you ours from the past. Most of mine are pretty lame.
And mine has always stayed the same.
I'm sticking with the T-Swifties for the 3rd year in a row now.
Mitch's Marauders.
Ooh, good. No, Taylor Swift. I think she embodies the power of fantasy football.
She is a power.
And you can go to fantasyfootballcalculator.com and generate some fun ones. Let us know what you think. So next week we'll do this show on Monday. That'll be preview prepping for Arizona. I've already started reading up on Arizona, and they have pretty interesting situations as well, so a lot to look forward to. But I think that about does it. Any final thoughts, Mitch?
No, we're just ready. We are almost a week and a half away from actual, real, live BYU football. Don't forget, Friday night.
What's Friday night?
We have a real football game. College football.
Oh, do we?
We do.
Who's opening? Who's playing? It's just 2 teams.
I can't remember, but they're playing in like Australia.
Oh yeah,
Cal
that's cool.
And
Hey, at least it's real teams. But yeah, real football is upon us. It's very exciting. I'm excited just to have a few days off of work. I generally work weekends, so going to the
and Hawaii.
BYU AZ game sounds fun. But thanks for tuning in to Tale of Two Cougars. We'll be back next Monday. We'll have another guest on tap for you. Look at that. Look for that on Twitter. And as I close this out in a very professional way, then we're going to have to learn how to stop all of our streaming, which is going to have a couple of awkward minutes of us pressing buttons. Here Mitch goes. He's just going to cut me off at some point.
Go Cougs.